what do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God! No!
Hey, everybody. How we doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's me, Legal Vices. And it's a special Sunday stream, it looks like here. I need to pull up my volume so I can hear myself. Hey, there we go. I hear some of you were waiting here yesterday for some reason. I can't imagine what had you all here waiting 24 hours early for this stream. I know it's an exciting stream and all, but I don't know that it was worth waiting 24 hours for, but I appreciate you doing that. Just kidding. Yeah, as those of you that were here yesterday knew and could tell, I kind of put the wrong date. Should have put the Sunday my time. It's on Sunday evening, but I saved the date as Saturday evening. So there you go. Am I quiet? Oh, okay. Hang on. All right. Okay, this should be better and louder. I was down quiet because, as those of you that are watching this trial know, last Friday the audio was absolute crap in the court, and it was still set for Friday's audio. So here we are, just waiting for the stream to start. All righty. Now, the reason I'm doing this is so that we can just start real time on Monday with the court. And, there's not much. I think it's like the stream will probably last an hour, maybe just a little smidge over an hour. So not too serious, nothing too long. But hey, I hope you're all having a great Sunday morning, or it's a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, wherever you are. Here it is 10:04 p.m. on Sunday evening, and I'm having a good time. It was a good, restful, relaxing day after yesterday. Those of you that were here again and saw in chat that I was out with some friends having some drinks and having a good time. Well, that led to having lots of drinks and doing the worst thing imaginable, just mixing everything. I'm good if I stick with wine or stick with whiskey or stick with whatever, but when I start mixing them, real bad things start happening up here in my head. I have the weirdest dreams, just weird dreams. If I mix alcohol, I get weird dreams. And last night's were pretty weird, but nothing to talk about. But started out at my friend's restaurant, the best steak in Korea, perhaps anywhere else. So anybody that comes to Korea whenever, and you come here to Busan and we go out for drinks, you also got to go for steaks. Steaks are fantastic. We started out there with some whiskey and wine, which is a bad thing. And then we kept having more whiskey and more wine. And suddenly it seemed like a really good idea because we have another friend who he part-time DJs. And we heard he was DJing at this newish club that was close to the restaurant. So a bunch of us old 50-somethings, I think it'd be a good idea if we went to the club. So people from mid 40s to, I guess, God, how many of us was there? 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't even remember. I think it was about 5 of us that went. All mid 40s to mid 50s. We all went clubbing last night, and so you have to scream to yell and talk to each other. So that's why my voice is a bit rough today. And of course, I got to sleep about 4 a.m. Then I had to wake up at 9 a.m. because I had to have a birthday lunch with my Russian friends, which, of course, man, there was wine and beer being served, and I could barely make the toasts because I just wasn't into it. And this is like the point in the movie where the grizzled old cop, super action hero guy that's 2 weeks from retirement continually starts saying, "I'm too old for this shit. that was kind of how I was feeling today. But so we're doing good, but we're great, and we'll catch up on Friday's stream here. Got any pictures as proof? Oh, I have videos proof. I haven't got up the courage to watch the videos that I made last night yet. We'll have to see if any of them are salvageable or even useful. So yeah, I'll have to see if any of the video is useful or what. Might have to post it to Twitter or something. All right, how are we all doing? Now we started Doggo Cam today at $90 because yesterday, crafty Florida lady says, crafty Flaw lady said, "Where are you? Did you boomer the date?" Yeah, that was a super chat from yesterday, and the answer to that question is most definitely yes. Yes, I did boomer the date yesterday. So there you go. It wasn't really a boomer thing. It was just I didn't do it correctly thing. But I am so glad you're all here. Let's get the show on the road. As far as I know, these are going to be the last two witnesses by the prosecution. I just kind of skimmed through it. I mean, by the defense, sorry. Last two. So we may be starting tomorrow, Monday, with closing arguments, jury instructions, and letting it go to the jury. So we'll just have to see how it goes. All right, let's bring this up. Where are we? Where is I'm still kind of, this little fog here. We're still in kind of a little mental fog. That's what we want to do. We want to share screen. Oh, and I kept my promise to Marv on Friday, who reminded me just by commenting on it that I had not put up the last unprofessional, unedited, one-take review of the season finale of The Last of Us. I did that and released that about an hour ago into the wild, so it's there if anybody wants to watch it. All right, the sex worker shooting retrial. Let's embiggen it. And now remember, the audio is absolute crap, so let's see if I can remember what we did yesterday. Okay, we have that volume up. We have to boost it 600%, and I am probably going to need to lower my volume. So let me get my phone ready here so I can listen to it on my phone and see how the balance is. Remember, there is no audio in the right channel, so I should probably wear my headphones like this. Thank you for reminding myself. There's no audio on the right channel. It's really, really, really quiet. So I'm gonna have to adjust my volume so that when I talk, it doesn't kill everybody's eardrums. Alrighty, almost there. My channel. That's what I want to watch. Oh, who is that handsome guy? That's me. All right, here we go. All right, everybody, strap yourselves in and let's go. As soon as I push play. Oh, that's a great way to start. Thank you.
On behalf of defense, we call Sergeant Evans to the stand.
Sergeant Evans is taking the stand. So let's see how this sounds.
Deviation.
No. Usually Courtney tries to ruin my social experiment. You can sit anywhere. You can sit anywhere.
I think we have changed on your flight, actually. I've only moved over a seat in the same two seats.
I made that wrong.
We'll have to see how it sounds once they start giving testimony. Where are you? Where are you, guy? Come on. There we go. Here comes Sergeant Evans.
You solemnly swear, affirm under penalty of perjury, your testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, sir. Have a seat. Pull yourself up close to the microphone. You may inquire.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Michael Evans, EVANS.
And Sergeant Evans, as you know, my name is Mark Collins. My partner, Caitlin Stevens. We represent Mr. Mitchell in this case. Tell the ladies and gentlemen jury a little bit.
All right. Well, now let's see how this sounds.
In the Columbus Police Department.
Okay. Joined the police department in 1992. So
couple months, be 31 years. Worked patrol for several of those years, was in the detective bureau for a couple of years, got promoted to sergeant in 2001. So next month it'll be 22 years I've been a sergeant. I, worked streets as a sergeant for probably about 10 years, was in internal affairs for about 6 years.
He walked the
Worked
streets
vice
too. He was
unit
a streetwalker.
for about
Cool.
3 years. Now I'm in the traffic bureau.
Back in 2018, were you a sergeant?
Yes.
What does it take to become a sergeant versus a patrol officer and a detective?
You take a promotional test and have to pass it.
And as a sergeant, you are now, is it fair to say you're overseeing patrol officers and detectives
Yes.
administratively?
Yes.
Okay. And back in 2018, where were you a sergeant? What division?
The vice unit.
Okay. And
He's
how many
got
people
that
did you
voice.
have
You know what
under
we gotta
your
do?
command?
That voice. He
I
needs
believe there
to.
was 8 assigned to me.
Officer Bones.
Now, back in 2018, are you involved in the actual physical contact and arrests with people for prostitution?
Rarely. If we do a big hotel operation or something like that, we're tied up, I may get involved, but I'm mostly the overseer of it.
Had you been involved previously with arrests for prostitution, whether you were a patrol officer or a sergeant in the vice?
Yes.
Okay. How many would you say?
I couldn't even guess. I mean,
Okay. When you're going to arrest someone for the elements, let's hypothetically you have the elements, you're going to arrest someone. What elements of society are associated with the vice unit and prostitution or solicitation?
not sure what you're asking.
It's a terrible question. When working in an area for prostitution or solicitation, are drugs associated with those types of arrests?
Yes, there's normally.
So basically, are hookers on
some
drugs?
weapons,
That's what he's asking.
Things like that.
So when you go to arrest someone,
Hookers
without
on
any friends,
drugs.
is part of your training, you're trying to trying to see, hey, is someone going to be compliant or not?
Yes, you're always trying to see if they're going to be compliant or not.
Have you had experiences when people were not compliant when you wanted to place them under arrest?
Yes.
Okay, what would you do in that situation, Sergeant?
Yeah, it depends. Well, that person kind of dictates the final outcome on how uncompliant they are. You start at your minimum level of force, and then you work your way up based on their actions.
And you said that person dictates it because they can control whether or not they're compliant.
Yes, because they could become compliant at any time during the situation, or they can escalate it even more.
And you're trained to try to react to that.
Yeah, you react to what they're, basically what they're giving you.
Okay. Now, back in 2018, as a sergeant in the vice unit, what are your basic duties?
A lot of administrative duties, a lot of, doing stats, checking everyone's arrest reports, and that we had 311 complaints, assigning those, making sure those get turned in. We had meetings with different people and with liquor agents. There's a lot of administrative type of situation. If we had any type of use of force or investigation on an officer, I completed those.
So you're kind of the conduit between the undercover officers or patrol officers and the chain of command.
Yes.
Okay. And help us understand something. Back in 2018, what was the policy with regards to an undercover vice officer working alone with regards to solicitation and prostitution?
Okay, you had to have at least one other detective that was working in the same area as you. Obviously not in the same car because that doesn't work. But they have to be in the general vicinity. You couldn't be working on the north side of Columbus and I go to the south side of Columbus and work. You had to be there in the general vicinity.
Okay. And if I was an undercover vice detective and I just decided on my own one day to go off by myself, I can't do that as well, right?
No, you can't go off and work by yourself.
So when the directives talk about, what does it mean when the directives talk about two people being present?
That means in the general area.
Okay. So close proximity, is that another term that you guys use in your training?
Well, close proximity, yes, within, general type area. Usually if we're working one precinct, you have to be in that area of that precinct. You can't, venture off by yourself.
And what are the policy and procedures if someone makes, one of the undercover detectives makes a lawful arrest involving a female charged with prostitutional solicitation, in terms of what are the next steps after that in general?
Okay, in general, we usually have takedown areas depending on what part of the city that we're working in. And the detectives try to get the elements and bring, all the arrestees or people back to that area so that they have help, with the arrest. Or usually our female detective, Laura Evans, she normally stayed at the staging area, so she could do the searches of the females and see if they had any contraband or anything like that on them.
So as a male, in general, if I'm a male detective and I arrest someone and I have them in custody, I'm supposed to take them to one of the staging areas.
Yes.
But the entire encounter with myself and the person I'm arresting, I'm alone, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so with a female, Miss Detective Evans would then search them at a staging area.
Yes.
Do they always have to go to a staging area once they have someone in custody?
No, that's just the perfect world that happens. A lot of times they don't make it to the staging area, or they can't get the elements because the girls know if, they start giving them directions, and if they start venturing off the directions that they're giving them, they'll never get the elements for an arrest or anything. Then sometimes we've had girls that once they realize that the person is a police officer and they're going to be arrested, I mean, they've jumped out of cars at 30 miles an hour before. They take off running anytime the car, so they have to stop halfway and make the arrest themselves. And then we come to them, or if the person calms down, they bring them to the staging area.
Have you had personal issues of non-compliance when trying to arrest someone for solicitation or prostitution?
I don't know for prostitution. I've had for several other things, but
In those situations, Sergeant, does whether or not someone's intoxicated or high on drugs potentially pose a risk to the person doing that?
that normally plays a part in it.
Okay. And in terms of non-compliance, is you can have verbal non-compliance,
Yes.
physical non-compliance?
Yes.
When that occurs, why is that charge called resisting arrest?
Because you're not complying with your lawful arrest.
Because they're trying
once you
to
have the
arrest
elements,
you and
you're
you're
allowed to
trying
make
to
a lawful arrest,
resist,
correct?
maybe?
Yes.
Have you had situations where the person that you were arresting didn't believe you were an officer?
I had where they said they didn't believe I was an officer, but
What
was
did-
able to show them credentials and stuff, and then they believed I was when I was in detective or plainclothes.
Once you determine to make an arrest and take someone into your custody, does it matter if they believe that you're an officer or not?
As long as you have a legal right, and you have probable cause.
Ah,
to make a
Bella
legal
Stella.
arrest, no.
Are you
Throwing some
confident in terms of
AED at us all the way
police have a
from
space
the
and an
Middle
officer has a
East.
space
Hi,
to
Jeff,
use
20 for the doggo
into that
cam.
space?
Thank
Is that
you.
any part of the training on use of force in the Columbus Division of Police?
I don't recall ever being trained. I mean, you're eventually going to have to go into their space to be able to handcuff them and take them, place them under arrest.
Sergeant Evans, what Detective Evans, I believe, talked about, what's a cop test in the vice world?
Cop test is they're trying to determine if you're a police officer or not. So they will expose certain body parts and ask you to touch them, or they'll get up on you and rub around your waist and your area. They'll look through the glove compartment.
I love that he calls it an area. That's what I refer to
determine
my area quite often.
if you're a police officer
Good
or
old
not.
Mystery
And
Science
we've had
Theater
girls get out of
3000
the cars
reference.
because the officer had a pack of cigarettes sitting in the console, and the girl just says, "Stop, let me out. You're the police." He's like, "Well, I am, but how'd you know I was the police?" He goes, "Well, you got cigarettes there. This car doesn't smell like smoke." So they're smart. So they do all these things just to try to determine if you're actually working or not.
And when, based on your experience and training, when you place someone under arrest and you identify yourself as an officer, right? Have you ever told someone you're under arrest and my name is Sergeant Evans and given them your badge number?
No, if I'm in plain clothes, I just say, "Police, you're under arrest for whatever you're under arrest for."
Okay. So again, have you
That's
ever
probably
told someone
exactly what he
that my
says.
badge
You're under
number is
arrest for whatever you're under arrest for.
I think you said you worked in internal affairs.
Yes.
Had you ever disciplined someone internally or administratively for not identifying themselves by their badge number?
Not for making an arrest, but if you have a citizen complaint and I request your name and badge number, you're required to give your name and badge number for a citizen complaint and like that. But never have I investigated anything as a supervisor where you have to say that before.
How long have you been a supervisor?
Next month will be 22 years.
Wow. And Kim Farnham, thank you so much for the 20. Haven't chipped in for the puppies lately. Also nice to be able to watch without stupid work interfering. Right. Thank you so much for that. And the dogs appreciate you watching them.
Why
and
do
not
the
doing
detectives
stupid
have to
work.
play a role in undercover operations with regards to solicitation and prostitution?
Well, you have to get in the character because, like I say, the people, they're smart. I mean, they deal, with people every day, and in their profession, they know what's kind of normal, what's not kind of normal. So if you don't act the role and get into the role, they can see right through you.
Sergeant Evans, back in 2018, what was the policy with regards to an undercover detective's discretion to, after they've charged someone and taken custody of that person for solicitation, would they have to take them to jail for a misdemeanor?
The policy was
American Dreamer
if
needs the
you
doggos. Thank
did
you.
not have a warrant on you, you had no illegal contraband on you, you received a summons with a court date on it, after all the checks, and you were searched if you had any contraband on you, and then you were released from staging area or wherever you were with the court date.
So there's a difference between arresting someone and charging them versus taking them into jail.
Well, they're still arrested. You just unarrest them after you determine and give them a court date, because they're not free to go.
You give them the summons and you give that.
Yes.
Okay. And
Now this guy, the way he looks and
however, if
talks,
they had a
there's
warrant
no way I
or
would
they
ever
had
believe that he
contraband
was
on them,
he was a
like you said,
John
or they had a
looking to
weapon on
hook
them,
up.
they had to be taken to jail regardless.
Unless it was if you had, a misdemeanor like driving, something for a stop sign. We get a lot of dog registration ones and stuff. You still had to come down to the courthouse, the clerk of courts, to get a different court date, but then you were still given your summons or release. But if it was something else, it was kind of out of our hands that you got arrested.
And then the documents back in 2018 for the vice unit, that would the undercover detectives carry documents in order to charge
Yes.
someone and give them their court
Yes,
date in
it
their
is.
cars?
Yeah, you had to complete your own paperwork because you're the only one that knew what happened in the car, basically, at that time.
Is that why also the policy with regards to turning the phone on or some tape recording device in the car?
Yes.
Okay. And those things, the paperwork, they include U-10-100s,
Yes.
affidavits,
Yes.
specific things towards the vice unit in terms of the affidavit.
And the affidavit, the wording is just, everybody uses the same affidavits in the police department. You just change the wording to fit. I mean, we had wording for, solicitation, prostitution, or we had specific wording for that, but you use the same affidavit.
Pre-printed.
Well, some pre-printed,
Whoa,
just to save time.
Sorry to stop this, but this is significant. Bella Stella, gee, thank you so dang much for that. That is so super generous of you. I deeply, deeply appreciate that. But that is most definitely dog cam freeing, isn't it? Thank you again. Thank you for that generous super chat. Free the doggos, Strawberry and Yoda. All right, let's see. The people have spoked. All right. Oh, I did not set dog cam to be joined easily. Let's hope that nobody has bumped it or touched it and it is still functional. Present extra camera. Yay. There we go. And we need this view here. All right. There's that Strawberry. You have to stop licking my toe there. And boom. There we go. Doggos are present. I think I kind of like, no, that's not the one I wanted, was it? That's not what I want either. Guess we'll just keep it like this. All right, folks, here we are. Doggos are here. You guys have been extremely generous. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Always, always, always.
Because if not, it's the same language. You just have to sit there and write it out by hand, which takes longer. So their thing is to pre-print them, fill in the person's name, information, and get them on the way as quick as possible.
And also, the undercover detectives carry their personal ID, or their ID is that they're a Columbus police officer, correct?
Yes.
Back in 2018, it's my understanding there was no requirement to have your badge on you while you're under.
Oh, I guess we can remove the banner.
Correct?
Well, if there was no place to really put your badge, because like I say, the girls during the cop test, they fill around on you and look, and you can fill a badge pretty obviously.
How about in
And
the
the
side of your
affidavits
drawer,
and
in a
the
pouch under the
complaints
seat,
and
in the glove box? How
they're
about
all
putting
specific to
your
Columbus,
badge
correct?
somewhere there?
I've never filled one out for any other jurisdiction, so I can't really answer that.
My point is, I can't just go online and print one of those out, correct?
It's pretty much, it's our division supplies them, yes.
I want to take you back to August 23rd, 2018. Were you working that day, sir?
Yes.
And your capacity as a sergeant of your kind of unit or team, right?
Yes.
Where did the day start out at?
At that day, we had firearms training, so we all met at the range that morning. We completed our firearms training, and then we were deciding, some people were talking about maybe going to lunch, but we decided it was too early to go to lunch. So we decided to go work, 8th Precinct, the area we were working.
And how many people were with you that day at the firearms training?
I would imagine the majority of them, I can't tell you exactly that far back, but the majority is because we always train firearms. We trained as a unit, and when everyone usually showed up unless someone was sick or something that day.
And describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that firearm training that day, what you recall about it, or what, if you remember.
Yeah, we had a decision course. It was, you went in the range by yourself. They gave you a little scenario, and you went to different stations. Each station was a little different. They have, the cardboard targets, and they're kind of facing you skinny. And then when the card turns towards you, you have to determine if it was a threat or not based on what the person was holding or something like that. And if it was a threat, you fired upon it until it turned back to being skinny, so it was no longer a threat. Or if it was coming at you, it would stop coming at you and turn, and face away from you.
Are you trained to fire until the threat is stopped?
Yes.
Or incapacitated?
Were any of those
The
targets
threat's
shaped
gone,
like
yeah.
hookers?
In that scenario, is it, if correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding that once the target turns that wrong angle, that the threat has stopped for that purpose?
Yes.
Okay. And in your training, are you trained to reassess the entire time you're in that course?
Yes, because while you're engaging one target, another target can turn towards you. They could have a cell phone in their hand. They could have a wallet in their hand. They could have another weapon in their hand. So you're always scanning and evaluating what's going on.
Are you trained that once you perceive a threat of serious physical injury or harm, to fire?
Have to fire till the threat is gone.
And if the threat isn't gone, do you continue to reassess?
You fire, reassess, and determine, what you need to do from that point.
So as long as in that scenario, you believe that the threat is still there, you can continue to fire as you reassess.
Yes.
In that course, is it described for ladies and gentlemen, is it a controlled setting, or do you have ear stuff on?
It's a controlled setting. You have your headphones on, you have your eyeglasses on, you have a safety officer that walks with you. Like I say, you're in there by yourself just with a safety officer, and like I say, you just go to the different stations and do your thing there.
Have you ever been involved in a situation where you experienced of a gun going off and you did not have ear protection on?
Yes.
How did that feel?
It was loud.
Could you hear anything?
But if you're outdoors, it's not quite as bad. Your ears ring and stuff for a little bit. If you're in a confined area, then it's a lot worse. Your ears ring, you can feel it through your body. And
What do you mean feel it through your body?
I mean, just the percussion of the sound blasts and everything. I mean, you kind of feel waves through your body.
And have you experienced a gunshot in a small confined space?
Yes, I've been training. I've fired inside vehicles.
Okay, vehicles that were closed?
Yeah, the doors were closed on
So
them.
could you hear anything at all after the first shot goes off?
Wow, we had headphones and earplugs on. So, but it was still very uncomfortably loud.
Then you weren't wearing your headphones or your earphones, your ear protection properly.
What does
It was still
50,
uncomfortably
when you go
loud.
to run a 50, what does that mean, sir?
You're checking to see if the person has warrants on them.
Based on your experience as a detective in the Vice Squad, what does dope sick mean to you, sir?
That means that they're going to go through withdrawals and it's going to be bad.
And have you experienced people who are going into custody who didn't want to go into custody because they were dope sick?
Yes, pretty much in the Vice unit, the majority of incidents we had where officers had to use some type of force or something, and I had to investigate it. I would say the majority, if not all of them, stated that they really being arrested didn't bother them as far as the charge, but they did not want to go through withdrawals while they were in jail because they said jail just leaves you in there and they feel like they're going to die as they go through withdrawals, and they do nothing for them in jail.
On August 23rd, so after the range, what happens next?
Well, we decided it's too early for lunch, so we decided to go work the Area's 8 precinct there. So we leave the range, and everyone's in different vehicles. So we go to that area, drive around, and usually officers, when they get ready to pick somebody up, they text the other officers and say, I'm going to try, kind of give a description in this area and attempt to pick them up.
You guys try to, how does the team communicate?
Usually with text, because usually their walkies and stuff are locked up.
Okay. And why are their walkies locked up?
Just because the girls go through their cars and, walkie, I mean, you can see it's a big thing. It's kind of hard to hide. They'll go through, and if they see it, then it's pretty much, they know.
What personally, were you looking for prostitutes in that area at that point in time, or you have other?
I remember I drove to the area once or twice. I didn't notice a whole lot of people out. So we had, I can't remember if it was a 311 or an officer called us and told us that up around High and Green Lawn, that area up there, there was people working up in that area, like towards the morning times and stuff. And I was up in that area, driving that area up around High and Green Lawn, looking to see if it was actually true what the people were saying or not, if there was people working up there or not.
Because you're a sergeant, is that why you're allowed to leave that area where the team's working?
Yes, there was no requirement that I have to be there.
Yeah, I'm a sergeant. I can pretty much do whatever I want.
There's one other people from the team is there in the area.
As long as they have one other person in that area.
And I knew Evans was there, and she was going to be at I believe it was the Princeton Club, what we was using for our takedown area. That's usually what we use in 8 precinct.
How about McKissick?
That McKissick was there because I talked to him right after the incident occurred, so I know he was there. I can't really name who all else was there. Like I say, that's been a long time ago.
Fair to say you're not on that specific text chain that they're doing.
Yeah, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. It just depends on.
How did you find out about what occurred?
I heard something on the radio, but before the radio went off, McKissick called me.
Okay, and then what did you do as a result of that?
I immediately responded to the scene.
And when you got to the scene, what did you observe?
When I got to the scene, they were loading Mitchell and Donna up in the ambulances. Everything was being taped off and that. So I was there till higher chain of command showed up. Then I went to the hospital.
Okay. And you know Andy Mitchell?
From working with him.
Are you friends outside of work with him?
No.
Don't socialize or anything like that? Okay. And
why not? Because he's guilty.
a couple quick
No.
if
That was kind of a weird
someone doesn't
question. I don't think you should have asked
believe
that question.
The person's an officer. Are they allowed to resist or be non-compliant?
Well, if you committed a crime and the person's a police officer, you got the legal right to arrest them and detain them,
It doesn't
whether
matter.
they believe it or not.
I have a moment, Your Honor. Sergeant Evans, I appreciate you being here. Appreciate your testimony today.
Any cross-examination?
Good afternoon, Sergeant. How are you?
Afternoon, good.
My name's Dan Cable. I think we've met.
Yes.
Yeah, but John, unfortunately, it invites the questions. Well,
Green
why
Line
aren't you
area.
friends with him?
When you say, when the standard procedure is that somebody be present, would you agree that that means that you need to be within a minute or two?
It's usually, yeah, within general vicinity there. Usually you don't venture too far from either. If we got a staging area set up, you try to at least stay on the same precinct, which precincts are different sizes, different, you know.
And that's so that somebody, if there is a problem, somebody's never too far away, right?
Yes.
And it's important to keep contact with each other to let each other know what you're doing in case something like that happens, right?
Yes, because if you, yeah, you won't know unless somebody tells you.
And whose responsibility is it to let the suspect know that you're a cop?
Whoever's placing them under arrest because they've got the elements of probable cause.
Okay. And I think at some point, if I'm not mistaken, have you had a situation where somebody has not believed you were a cop?
That when I was been in plain clothes before, you know, they'll say, I don't even think you're a cop, type of thing.
And what do you do in those situations?
Shoot him.
I usually show them my ID or my badge, and you know, some will say, well, I still don't know if I believe that or not, but you still place them under arrest.
Can you just sit there and wait for a little bit for your backup to come, or
It depends on the situation. If it's something that needs to be escalated, then you need to take them into custody immediately. You know, if they're getting agitated, if they're going to be a flight risk, or you try to keep it at the calmest level. But if they sit there and stay calm and you can talk to them and everything's good, then, I mean, you could sit there for however long you need till somebody gets there.
And would that be preferred?
Well, it's always preferred. Yeah, you don't have to use any force. Yes.
Okay. When you go through the training, the firearms training that you talk about, the decision course,
yes,
isn't it true that you generally are focusing on the weapon if there is one?
We are focused on the target with the weapon. Yes.
Right. But you're trying to see if you're trying to look at the actual weapon, right?
Well, you have to determine, because if it turns towards you, you know, that it could be a wallet, could be a cell phone, it could be a weapon. I mean, you have to evaluate that it's actually a weapon before you fire
Right.
it.
And if it is a weapon, you got to know whether they still have it or whether they've chucked it or any number of things, right?
Yeah, well, if the weapon, you know, like I say, on ours, they obviously the paper target can't drop them, but they, you know, they turn, you know, so they don't face you. But you're always evaluating what's going on to determine if it's, you know, if the person's, you got to determine if they're still a threat or not.
And in these trainings, you're already primed, right? You know something's coming.
Yeah, I mean, you know, thing, but we have had training before where they get you primed, and then and every target that turns to you, someone, you know, they got a wallet, they've got, I mean, there's nothing that you shoot at, and you know, so you always have to evaluate it.
But you've already got your weapon and it's easily accessible.
Yes, our training is all, we have to wear our holsters and that. So yes.
You mentioned that you had some experience, I believe, with shooting inside of a enclosed space.
Inside a vehicle during training.
Okay. But you had ear protection, right?
Yes, had ear protection on, eye protection, yes.
Would you agree that if you were in a car in a closed space, but you opened a door, that would lessen the percussion effects?
Yeah, I did. Our doors were closed, so I would venture to say because the sound could escape through the door, it possibly could, but I can't say 100%.
But it makes sense.
I mean, yes, with science, it makes sense that it would escape through the open area.
Okay. Have you heard about, you talked about dope sick. Have you heard about folks getting tolerance to drug and alcohol?
What do you mean tolerance?
I mean, the more you use, the better you are at it. It takes more to get you drunk, or it takes more.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much a normal thing. Yeah, your body will adjust to whatever levels you're taking. And I mean, it happens it's not an instant thing. It happens over time, and your addictions, your body will just adjust, and you have to take more and more and more.
But you'd agree with me that some people could test very high and act like a normal person because that's their normal state.
Yeah, I mean, that's some people, their body, you know, they can't actually live without so much alcohol or drugs because their body will shut down.
So would you agree that it's hard to tell just in a street encounter if somebody's on alcohol or drugs, unless they're actively showing something that tells you that person's on alcohol?
Yeah, usually there's some kind of physical or speech or some type of thing that will tip you off.
Okay. And I think you talked about procedure and training with badges and stuff like that, and I don't want to keep beating on that, but would you agree that sometimes when people have warrants, that there are times when cops would tell them that, okay, just go down to the courthouse and get this taken care of?
A long, long time ago. It used to be until, yeah, we had a little incident that, it didn't work out for the officer. So it pretty much, and I can't remember what year that was and when it changed. But then there was a requirement that, yeah, everyone had to go.
But sometimes cops don't follow the requirements, right?
That's pretty much, it happens.
Just like prosecutors and defense attorneys sometimes.
I mean, everybody's human. Everybody kind of will
Okay.
venture a little bit sometimes.
Okay. And sometimes that makes perfect sense based upon a situation, right?
Yes.
Because these policies you guys have can't cover every single thing that happens to you, right?
No, I mean, that's why we have new policies, on a regular basis, and policies change and get updated on a regular basis just because of incidents that occur.
In your training, are you ever trained at the range to empty your firearm?
You're just trained to till the threat stops. Like I say, it could be, you could fire one time and the threat's gone, or you could, run a couple magazines through your gun and, and actually run out of bullets until the things. It could be anywhere in between too. It's just one of those where when the threat's gone, you stop.
Right. And you're required to constantly be reassessing and assessing whether that threat has stopped, right?
Yes.
And in general, are some of the things that you look for, or would you agree with me that some of the things you look for in determining that are whether they are armed?
Yes.
Right? Whether they're actively shooting at you,
Yes.
or actively stabbing you, or what they're saying to you.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things you gotta, at that level, you're gonna have to bring a lot of things into play. Yeah.
But these are all things that you're taking in, right? To decide, is this still a threat or is it a threat to start with?
Yes.
And whether or not they try to get away, right? Whether they flee.
But try to escape or not, yes.
Yeah. But if somebody's coming up at you with a knife or a gun, they're a threat, and you fire and they drop that gun and turn like this, do you keep killing them because you once had reason to, or do you have to stop at that point?
Well, you have to change your tactics and use a different type of force or a different type of avenue normally.
Would you agree?
As long as you can see that their hands and stuff, because you could drop one gun or knife and pull another one out of your waistband. It's always, you just don't know at that point.
But you've got to be looking for that, right?
Yeah, you have to reassess. Yes.
So would you agree that just because you get justification to shoot somebody, or you fear for it, that doesn't mean you shoot them until they're dead every time? Right?
No, we shoot till the threat stops, not till we.
And that could mean they quit.
It could mean until they die too.
Or they quit and it's too late. Yes, any number of things. So, or if for instance, if they're into a ball or a defensive position, feet up against their chest like this, that would tell you something, right?
Yeah, that tells you that pretty much the force at that point is stopped, but that doesn't mean if you go up and we've had people do that, and then as soon as you touch them again, the fight's on again. So it's
right.
Just keep reevaluating it. Those situations rapidly change in seconds.
Yep. And you keep reevaluating. And would it be would you consider it to be a good thing that you are actually able to see the person you're shooting?
I mean, if it's a threat, it would be a good thing to, to see what you're up against.
You ever train where you train people to fire things they're not looking at?
And well, I mean, I can think of some situations where you would have to do that, but we don't do any training on that.
Okay. And at the
good answer.
At the range, like I said, you've always got your firearm with you. But if you don't, or it's not easily accessible, and you determine that your life's at risk, but it takes you some period of seconds to get your firearm, would you agree with me? You're still required at that point to, when you turn, to reassess.
Well, yeah, you're always reassessing the
Always
situation.
reassess,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And you guys are trained very hard on that, right?
Yeah, you're always reassessing every situation that you're in all the time.
And you're trained that way because you're supposed to be better than the average person at this kind of stuff, right?
Supposed to be, yes.
Okay. And just because you're trained that way, though, doesn't mean sometimes cops blatantly go against their training. Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, certain situations, stress and stuff. I mean, I say I'm not privy to all information on all, shootings and stuff we have in the city of Columbus and stuff like that. But you need to evaluate. But then again, I mean, your threat level is different than my threat level. So you got to reevaluate based on your training and your abilities and what you're feeling your threat is.
Absolutely. I'm just saying it's not outside the realm of possibility that there are cops who do things they're not supposed to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was internal affairs for 6 years. I know that cops do things that they're not supposed to do. So,
All right. Thank you. I appreciate you coming in.
Well,
Briefly, Sergeant Evans, if someone slashed you with a knife, would you consider that person a threat?
yes,
And if you saw the knife ahead of time and you believed that they were going to seriously injure you, you would be justified in firing your weapon at them, right?
if I believe they were still going to harm me, yes.
Even if they hadn't harmed you yet and you see the knife coming at you, you're allowed to shoot, correct?
Re-ask the question.
Why are you allowed to shoot, Sergeant Evans, if you see a knife coming at you and you perceive it to be a deadly threat before it gets to you?
Well, you don't have to let somebody stab you, or if they got a gun, you don't have to let them shoot you before, you shoot or take whatever action you need to stop that threat.
Why are you allowed to try to save your life from someone choking you or attacking you with deadly force?
If you pass out, you have your weapon, or they have a weapon, I mean, your life is definitely in danger.
Why are you allowed to use force in response to someone using deadly force or serious physical force to you? If they've already done it to you once, are you allowed to start from the premise that they're going to do it again?
Well, you stopped, I mean, if they do it to you, you take whatever actions you need till the threat's gone.
What does an action versus a reaction mean for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Action versus reaction. Action means you're actually doing something. Reaction is if you do something to me, I'm reacting to what you're doing.
Is an action always faster than a reaction?
Always, because you gotta take your mind will take at least a second or half a second to figure out what's going on for you to react.
Are you trained as a reasonable police officer when you're about to have a serious physical injury, or you believe the person's a threat? And it's already happened once, do you have to start from the premise it might happen again?
No, you don't have to wait for them. I mean, if you believe that if it's still a threat, you can take what action you need to stop that threat.
So when you're reassessing, and in your mind, if you're looking at something, if that person you believe is still a threat, you shoot till the threat is stopped.
Yes, if you're using deadly force, you can shoot till the threat's gone.
Thank you, Sergeant Evans.
Any questions as a result of those? All right, Sergeant, you can step down. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further witnesses?
We do one more, guys?
Yep.
Should be fairly quick.
Yeah, the next call is Officer John Gagnon.
Okay, they've got one more witness who I believe is the use of force expert. But okay, that cop was a pretty good witness. I thought he sounded pretty fair. He answered the questions the way I think he answered the questions the way that I think he truly believed, and wasn't just up there for one side or the other. Surfing Bird says preferable to wait, witness, backfire. Well, he said it's preferable to wait for backup, and not that you're required to wait for backup. And not waiting for backup apparently isn't a violation of policy or anything like that. So that wasn't too big of a thing, I think. And Momo Shark says, isn't retreating same as reassessing? Just asking, I don't know. Not necessarily. I mean, you can retreat and reassess. I mean, retreating is backing out of the situation, which I know everybody says the door was open, he can just get out, but he would remember at that point he was wearing a seatbelt and being stabbed. At least at the beginning, he was being stabbed wearing a seatbelt. So if he's going to get out of the car and he still thinks the person has the knife, he's got to reach down, undo the seatbelt, open the door, climb out, and hopefully not get stabbed. And as he testified, which I thought was a valid and reasonable explanation, he said, he decided that, if she's going to keep stabbing him, he might get stabbed again, but he's going to reach for his gun. And I think that's a reasonable thing. Nicholas Starr, Union Rep Labor Law. The deadliest catch. Shame on you. Shame on you, Nicholas. Shame on you. Uh-huh. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah, and that's also what Steven said. He testified that he doesn't even remember opening the door or the door being open. So, it's a tough case. It's a tough call. Let's see how we're all doing over here on the like and subscribe poll. For those of you that have taken the like and subscribe poll, there's currently 241 people here and 170 likes. And of those 170 likes, 106 of you have voted. Hey, those of you that have taken the like, that have hit that like button and not voted, get over there and vote now. The question is, now you're taking the poll. He's guilty of murder, guilty of voluntary manslaughter, or not guilty. 26% of you say guilty of murder. And now 27% of you say guilty of murder. Now 26. It's fluctuating because you're all taking the poll. 31% of you right now think he's guilty of voluntary manslaughter, which is more of a passion, a crime of passion, a heat of the moment kind of a thing. Like you lose your temper, and you just go too far kind of a thing. So 28% guilty of murder, 31% guilty of voluntary manslaughter, and 41% of you say not guilty. I gotta say, not guilty for me. I don't think that the prosecution has really provided any solid evidence that would negate his testimony of self-defense. I just don't see it. And y'all may disagree with me, but I just don't see it. I think, a reasonable person could say, oh my God, he's being stabbed. And he's got one chance to do this, so he's firing in self-defense. And again, there was 6 shots fired, only 3 of them struck her. And we don't know which 3 of those 6 shots. It could have been any combination. The first 3 could have got her, the last 3 not. Could have been the last 3 that got her, the first 3 not, or any other combination. We just don't know. And there was one shot was through the leg, went into her calf, went in near the shin, came out the back of her calf and into her thigh. That wouldn't be a deadly, or maybe it might not even be an effective, neutralizing the threat shot. You just don't know. So maybe that was the first one, and the last 2. The state just did not do a good enough job saying, look, he hit her. The first one was a kill shot, and then he shot 5 more times. They didn't do any of that. They didn't do anything to say, which was the shot that would have stopped the threat. Was it number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? They didn't do that. Proportional force is not a thing, though. It does not have to be proportional. That's just not even a legal thing for police officers. Yeah. Well, let's see what the defense use of force expert has to say, because he's coming up next. Oh, he's got a doggy woggy with him.
Officer, before I swear you in, what's the dog's name? What's up? Can you raise your right hand?
Oh.
You solemnly swear, affirm under penalty of perjury, your testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? I do.
I want to take my dog to court.
May I inquire?
You may.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
My name is Caitlin Stevens, and I, along with my co-counsel, Mr. Collins, represent Mr. Mitchell in this action. If I go too fast at any point, Miss Carla will definitely yell at me, but please just let me know. Or if you don't understand my question, please just please let me know.
Okay.
Can you please state your name and spell your last for the jury?
My name is John Gagnon.
Why is the last witness of the trial the only one that knows how to use a microphone?
My dog is Eddie. He's a retired police therapy dog that worked for the division for 3 years and then retired when I did.
You said
Oh.
you're retired?
Yes,
How are you enjoying retirement?
it's okay.
It's okay. I know I'm relatively young in my career, but I can't wait till the day I can say I'm retired.
Jeez.
How long?
That's not a
what
great
were
way
you
to make
doing prior
partner.
to retirement?
I worked for the Division of Police for 32 and a half years, various assignments from patrol to, I taught firearms at the range. I was in our Strategic Response Bureau section. I was in narcotics tactical unit. I was in a therapy dog program and on the underwater search and recovery team for 30 years.
Back in 2018, what was your assignment?
I was assigned to the ordnance unit, the firearms training section.
John,
What
you've
type of
been
training is
you've been
necessary
checking
to
up on
be
all of
a,
them, huh?
a-
Okay,
in
so
a
apparently she is a
firearms training
partner.
unit?
It's state certification. You have to have a instructor development course, which now is an 80-hour course, teaches you how to teach. And then specifically for the firearms portion, the state requires specific instruction in shotguns, revolvers, and pistols is the basic training for the firearms instructors. And then we go on to do more in rifles, riot control munitions, things like that.
So it sounds like you had to go through, as a police officer, you had to go through OPATA and get that certification,
Yes.
right? And then as a firearms instructor, it sounds like you had to do 2 more levels of certifications.
Yes, well, it was 3 courses of certification to get that firearms instructor.
And what were your duties with regards to being a firearms instructor?
Typically, for the Division of Police, for on-duty officers, we run 5 courses of fire a year. And then we also teach.
That is so
recruits their
low.
Introductory basic firearms training in the pistol, the service gun, and their shotgun, and then a familiarization with the rifle. But
They only do
main
5
focus
firing
is
trainings a
certifying
year.
on-duty officers every year by the state standards.
So when the class of officers come to be taught on firearms or qualify for firearms, are there different aspects of the training, say classroom versus out on the field?
Yes. Like I said, in best years, we have 5 phases of training. Their duty gun, their off-duty gun, the shotgun. We do a decision course. Each of the courses, we start out with a sign-in, making sure everyone's there. We go over safety procedures, and that may be in the front lobby of the range, or it may be in one of the classrooms.
And then do you subsequently go out to the range?
Then we go to the firing range itself for whatever the course of fire is for that phase.
I want to focus on phase 4. Tell ladies and gentlemen what phase 4 would be.
That year, it was the decision course. What we do is we have our inside range is 50 yards long by 50 yards wide. So we try to use all that space for our training. And sometimes that's putting a whole bunch of people in little booths standing in line. But when we do the decision course, we set up different scenarios. So one end of the range might have a table and a chair. At another point, we may hand the officer a clipboard and have some barrels there that we say, hey, that's your car. You're walking away from your car to go take a report. We may put tarps up to give them a narrow focus. So they have to walk down a hallway. And then we incorporate the parts of the range that we can change, like the target carriers, and we put up different types of targets. Everything is cardboard and paper. So we set them up and we can control them coming at you or going away from you or turning away. and some of them pop up and drop back down. So we use everything we have that we can to make it different and make the officers think, to help the training be better.
What kinds of targets are presented to the officers during the decision course?
In the classroom, we talk to them before they ever go out and start shooting, and we show them the targets we're going to use. And again, they're posters, color posters of people in various stances. Okay, we can't change them very quickly, so it may be the same person on 3 posters, but what we can change is what's in their hand or what's not in their hand. So we'll have some posters where the target is facing them and it's holding a gun pointed at him, but the next picture might be the same guy, but he's holding a drill or he's holding a beer, or instead of a beer, he's holding his badge case up. So we change what we can, and we tell them, we understand the limitations. You're going to see a picture. If that picture is pointing a weapon at you, assume they're firing at you. That would be an obvious threat, and the response to that is to fire back. Then we have non-threat targets, and we tell them, well, you gotta look at the target. If they're holding a badge up or they're holding a beer up, that's a non-threat target. Okay, so you wouldn't shoot them, you wouldn't point your weapon at them. Then there's the indeterminate, and those are the hardest ones that we do. And that's where we have it really low lighting, or the guy's in a position like this, and instead of a gun in his hands, he's got that drill that's got the same point. It might be a firearm, so you got to look twice. So those are the indeterminate ones. So we give them 3 types of targets, and we tell them how we want them to react to them. And then we take them out and we walk them through the scenarios.
How are you supposed to react to a target who does in fact have a gun, who you're assuming as the officer is firing at you?
And we tell them, if the person's pointing the gun at them, it's not, hey, I want to go turn in this firearm. They are shooting at you. So we tell them that beforehand. So there isn't a question. They don't have to ask questions. We're saying when that target turns and faces toward you, if they're pointing a weapon at you, they are shooting at you.
And what's the officer supposed to do in that response?
Go to cover, return fire, end the situation.
Shoot until the threat's over?
Yes.
At the range, Mr. Officer Gagnon, is ear protection required?
Yes.
What kind?
The officers, we recommend they have the little foamy earplugs in, but they have to have a hard set of headset, like you see people with over the ears, both ears, and up over top of their head.
Why is that?
It's an OSHA requirement because it's loud.
How is the course or range designed to deal with different sound effects of the weapon?
Sound effects.
The range itself has sound deadening foam the first 10 or 20 yards out on the side walls and then across the roof to try and limit some of the noise.
And when you fire a firearm in the range with the both recommended and the required ear protection, you said it's loud?
It's still loud, yes.
Have you ever had training of firing a weapon from inside of a vehicle?
Yes.
Tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that sounds like in comparison to you being at the range.
We did do training with that while shooting inside a car, and being in a real tight enclosed space like that, it's not just the sound, it's the overpressure. You're going to feel that too. That is very distracting. And obviously we're not able to replicate that on our range because you'd be shooting out a lot of windows, but the instructors have gone to courses and that, so most of the instructors understand that.
I want to take you back to August 23rd of 2018. Were you working at the range that day?
Yes.
And in what capacity?
That day, I did the classroom section of the training, and then we switched off. We had a range master in the booth running the targets, and then we had safety officers that would take each officer through. They would pick up the officer at the door and bring them in, and go over with them. This is what we want you to do. Safety stuff, keep the firearm down range, things like that. And I did both the classroom and work the range.
And what phase of training did you do that same phase of training that we previously just talked about, phase 4?
Yes, distraction.
Yes.
Or decision.
The decision-making course. So you mentioned that you were both the classroom officer and the safety officer?
Mhm.
And so the safety officer, you said, just gives instructions on how to be safe?
The safety officer, the officers, once they got done with the classroom, they'd all go to the lobby and make ready. So that we change into target ammo instead of their duty ammo. Some of the times, and I don't recall exactly, we set their magazines with a certain amount of rounds because we don't want them shooting 40 rounds on a course. We just need to show that they're recognizing the threat and dealing with it. So when they come into the range, an officer meets them at the door, makes sure their gun's holstered, and walks them through the through the range to the number one position to start. And they'll go through position 1, position 2, position 3, or 4. I think there was 4 that year. And each one's a little bit different scenario.
And you walk with the officer through that scenario, through 1 through 4?
Yes. And the reason is, like I said, our range is 50 yards wide by 50 yards long. Occasionally officers really get into the training, and we want to make sure that the weapon is downrange all the time, even if they're walking this way, facing this way. If they happen to see one of the targets move or something, we don't want them inadvertently drawing or pointing the weapon back toward the instructors. So we're within arm's reach, up close with the officers as they go through.
And so when the threats presented themselves to the officer, would they always come from in front or from the side, or how would the threats present themselves to the officer?
Well, all the targets are downrange. So we move them into a position where they can see a sideways target. So we put them into position to see a target that may be facing. But all the targets are downrange, and all the targets can move forward and back, except for the ones that just pop up or down.
How far downrange are the targets, would you say?
Depends on the situation. Some of them, we have them maybe 5 or 6 yards away. Some of them, they may be 20 or 30 yards.
Did threats ever come from behind the officer during? Why is that?
It would be unsafe. We don't want the officers to feel that they need to turn around at all.
Have you ever been involved in like a 360-degree training aspect with the firearm where a threat does come from behind you?
Yes. Some of the instructors, we went through what's called a 360 shoot house, where they have a range that every wall will take rounds. So when you go in, you may go in the door and your threat may be right beside the door as you come in. And because of the way the range is set up, you can shoot in any direction.
How would you classify a threat as in front of you or behind you, officer? I apologize. That was a really terribly worded question. How would you would a person be more of a threat if they were coming towards you with a weapon or behind you with a weapon?
The threat coming toward me, I can see and evaluate and decide how I'm going to react. Behind me, I wouldn't be able to do that, so I would be more of a threat.
Officer Gagnon, you mentioned that you were also you also instructed the class on that day. Did you instruct them on the same kinds of threats that you and I had spoke about earlier?
Yes, I told them what the targets were, how we expect them to react to the targets, and we told them everything we do. We'd say, we're going to put something in your hand. Well, if you have it in your hand, you have to get rid of it to get to your gun. So we give them all the instructions and then take them out in the range and then have them try to remember them and go through them.
Thank you. I want to switch gears and talk to you a little bit about firearms, specifically gun jams. Are you familiar with them?
Yes.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a limp wrist is?
The semi-automatic firearm works on a recoil, and if what they call limp wrist is when you fire, you're letting your hand go back at the same time as the recoil wants to go back, and it wants to have something firm to push against so that it reloads the firearm. So they call it limp wrist, where you're moving the same time the gun wants to go this way when you should be pushing against it to provide that force to make the action work.
Can that cause a gun to jam?
Yes.
Are there other types of jams that you've seen?
Typically there are 3. There's fail to extract, fail to feed, and what's called a double feed.
When do the extraction or the double feed jams occur typically in your experience?
The limp wristing is one that will cause it not to be able to fire again. Sometimes if there's something blocking the ejection port, it can stop the spent round from the casing from getting out, and it jams inside and blocks it.
When someone is right hand dominant, is it fair to say that they're slower shooting with their left hand?
It'd be fair to say they're less accurate with their left hand unless they practice a lot.
Would they be slower too or no?
They can be, sure.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Well, that's pretty much exactly what Andrew Branco was saying the other day.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes, you may.
All right, we can skip through the approaching here. Oh yeah, please, more beeping. Yeah, we love that
Much,
beeping.
Officer. Thank you so much, Officer Gagnon, for your service to our community, and thank you to Eddie for providing us all a smile this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Any cross-examinations?
Briefly.
Right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
How
sir.
are you?
Fine.
Good. Should I cross-examine Eddie or you?
Uh-huh.
You been a good boy.
He is good.
Okay.
Don't make jokes. Jokes are stupid.
Um,
Notice how not a single person
we
laughed.
talked about a
Jokes
target
in
being
court
behind you would be
almost
a threat.
never work.
But if you knew that target was there, would you know to turn around and sort of reassess the situation? Is that how you're trained?
Yes.
You're not trained to just start firing
No,
at somebody.
if I knew a threat was behind me, I would want to turn and try to get some sort of visual on it. Sure.
Right, and in fact, that kind of the theme here is you're supposed to reassess every time, right?
Continually.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you train that pretty routinely and pretty thoroughly because you're supposed to be better than the average person at this kind of stuff, right?
But see, his question's not a good
You mean
question.
Reassessing?
Every time you're taught to read between targets is
Better than
what the
average bear
prosecutor's
at
saying
handling
here.
situations.
We would like to think so.
Right.
You're taught to
Well, and that kinda
neutralize
gets
the
me here,
target
I'm not
and
gonna
then
spend a lot-
reassess.
well, have you ever jammed a gun by limp wrist?
Myself? Yes.
Okay. You said you're supposed to be better, and in your training, wouldn't you agree that despite all your efforts, all the prep time you spend training, that some of these officers are just not as good as some of the others?
Absolutely.
And some of these officers are less meticulous about the rules than some of the others.
I can only say about on the range, we're really particular about the rules. If they break the rules on the range, we ask them to leave or then fix it.
But some of them still do.
Some do, sure.
And some are
Stupid
less,
question.
enthusiastic about the training than others.
Absolutely.
Some care more about it than the others.
Yes.
And in fact, some police officers simply don't do what they're trained sometimes in real life.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, you've heard of that before,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Okay. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Oh, and the implication, therefore, is he did everything wrong.
Officer Gagnon, back on August 23rd, 2018, did you kick Andy Mitchell off the range that day for not following instructions?
No.
Thank you.
There you go.
Step down.
That just ruined the prosecution's entire cross-examination with that one thing. Gave a little challenge coin to the court reporter.
What is it?
Hermes Mountain Dog. Franklin County Animal Shelter's best.
Aw.
Councilman approach.
All right. They're approaching. Oh, more beeping. We don't want more beeping. Okay.
Do not discuss this case among yourselves. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form and express an opinion on the case until it is finally submitted to you. Go have a wonderful weekend.
All rise.
And we'll challenge coin.
You guys seen the card?
Okay, are we gonna say anything important here?
Take a look at the jury instructions. We will. And I made one little tweak to it.
And Judge, did you get our thing about adding the definition of conduct?
Yeah, we'll respond this weekend. That's what we said this week. We'll talk beforehand. That's what we, remember we talked yesterday.
Well, all right. It sounds like the defense will rest first thing on Monday morning because he was talking about looking at jury instructions and making comments over the weekend. So it looks like Monday, probably the very first thing that'll happen is the defense will rest. Then they'll go ahead with the closing arguments, jury instructions, and then turn it over to the jury, probably on Monday. Interesting. This was a quick, short trial. Huh. Well, you're still about 45% self-defense. Well, okay. It's whether he acted reasonably. Yeah, by a preponderance of the evidence. Well, by 51, 40, 50 point whatever percent. Yes, he acted reasonably, that kind of a thing. That's it. Gosh, what do we think here? Let's see what you folks here in chat think. 255 of you on this wonderful Sunday morning. I hope it's wonderful. Or Sunday afternoon here. It's the Sunday night, just kind of wrapping it up real quick. We've got about 40 minutes left, 42 minutes left of Sunday. Right. Let's see. What have I done? I have closed the window that had the poll on it. Let me reopen this. There we go. Currently, 25% of you say he's guilty of murder. It's 1 in 4 of you. That's a pretty high number. 30% of you think he's guilty of voluntary manslaughter, because to be murder, you have to intend to murder them. Voluntary manslaughter is more of the heat of the moment, the passion kind of thing. 30% of you say guilty of voluntary manslaughter, and 45% of you say not guilty. If I was on the jury, I would have to say not guilty. I think he's presented a reasonable argument, a reasonable case, a reasonable discussion for why he was justified in doing what he did. May not be perfect. You may not like it, but I think it's reasonable and is practical. And I don't think the prosecution presented any evidence that would disprove that he acted in self-defense. I think that the prosecution, in my opinion, did a pretty bad job in this case, really. Like we talked about, they didn't tell us anything about the order of the shots, which shot was likely to have done the damage that killed her. I just don't like it. And I thought their cross-examination was really almost worse than if they hadn't done it. Even their own witnesses made some very good arguments on behalf of the defense. Some of the prosecution's best witnesses were the best witnesses for the defense. I walked into this. I wanted to think he was guilty. I wanted to vote guilty. I thought he was guilty during the opening statements. And that quickly changed to where I didn't think the prosecution was making a good argument. In fact, their witnesses were supporting the police officer's position. So we'll have to see how this goes. But I'm going to have to be voting for not guilty. And at least 1 in 4 of you are voting for guilty, and more than half, what do you got? 56% think he's guilty of something. I mean, to me, guilty of voluntary manslaughter would make more sense than murder. But again, you can't find him guilty of You can't say he's not guilty of murder, but he's guilty of manslaughter if you believe he acted in self-defense. If you believe he was justified in acting in self-defense, he can't be guilty of either of them. We missed one of Nicholas Starov's super chats, which made his deadliest catch. So what do you call a murderous inheritress? You call her the deadliest catch. See, now I just thought you were talking about the deadliest catch. I thought you were just talking about the hooker in the back seat. Because I missed this one. I didn't see this one. So thank you for those two separate super chats, Nicholas. And Friday, see, StreamYard, I hate you now. Friday, I was all celebrating and just loving the fact that they had their streaming software had a separate column for all super chats. That's gone now. It was there for one day, and now it's not there anymore. So now I have to go back to starring all of the super chats and hope I don't miss any of them. So if I do miss any of them, I apologize. All right, that's all of these super chats. But Fondian says, I kind of wish either the defense or the prosecution would have tried to do a reenactment. Well, the prosecution probably didn't want to because they apparently didn't have any information that was relevant to, as far as when, which bullet struck, what order they were shot in, which ones were fatal. So I don't think they could have done a reenactment. The defense, they did a very, 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 very minor, brief reenactment where they had the lawyer sit on the witness stand box on the rail and sort of show how they were holding each other. But I don't think the defense would want to, because once that missing information, the confusing data, that all goes and it helps the defense. As soon as the defense says this is exactly what went down, they're locked into that argument. They're locked into that scenario. Whereas if they don't put on a reenactment, if they can't say, oh, it happened this way, they go, it's not we don't have the burden of proving this. And that's a benefit for them. So I don't think the prosecution could, and I certainly don't think the defense would want to. Eric Foams, where's the evidence he was in fear for his life? He got stabbed in the hand, as he said, from the top of his thumb down to the bottom, required 34 stitches and a blood transfusion. You are justified to be in fear for your life when someone is attacking you with a knife in an enclosed space. Yeah, we've got a lot of comments and a lot of arguments, and it's going to be up to the jury. And remember, this apparently is such a close argument that the first jury deliberated for 18 hours and couldn't come to a unanimous decision. Let's see, scrolling down through here. I don't think the last three were self-defense. It was punitive anger, says Brad. What if the last three shots were the ones that hit her? There was 6 shots and only 3 hit. We have no idea which shots hit her. Maybe the first 3 missed and the last 3 were the ones that neutralized the threat. We just don't know because the prosecution didn't put that on. And maybe they didn't have it. Maybe they couldn't determine it, but that's their problem. We can't say which of the shots were self-defense. They were all self-defense is what he's saying, but we can't say at what point the threat was neutralized. We can't say at what point the threat was neutralized because we don't know what those 6 shots were. Yeah, I did. I missed the first part of his joke. I don't think they've gotten to self-defense, but it doesn't matter because the state hasn't proven murder. Well, they're admitting it. If he's see, that's the problem with arguing the self-defense. You're admitting that you killed this person, and it's you're either it's homicide or somebody died. Either you intended it, you had the mens rea, you had the mens rea, you had the intention of murdering them, of killing them, of ending their life in an unjustified manner, or something less than that. So if you're saying that they haven't gotten to self-defense, but the state hasn't proven murder, does that mean you're leaning towards guilty of voluntary manslaughter? It was 45 seconds before the shooting. He was stabbed and he tried to subdue her. And this is his argument. This is the argument that was made. He spent the next 45 minutes trying to subdue her and arrest her, and then eventually determined that was his only thing he could do. He had to reach for his weapon because he still thought she had the knife. She was getting behind him and whatnot. Sounded to me like he grabbed the knife. Well, he's on audio saying she stabbed me twice. He says it twice, and he had more than one cut on his hand, which the prosecution kind of forgot to mention that during their point. It just came out later that he actually had another cut on his hand. Well, if you run into my fist, is that me punching you in the face? So you're saying she had her knife in the car and then he tried to stop her and ran into the knife. Well, see, this isn't you and me. This is a police officer. They are, you pull a knife on a cop and he's justified to shoot you in the face. I mean, it's presumed that you're up to no good and you're threatening them. That's why people get shot by cops all the time, for having knives at a distance, for having other weapons, rocks, bats, whatever, before they get within punching range. Once the knife comes out in a car, the cop can take the action. 45 minutes of hooker wrestling. Can anyone give a quick recap of what happened? Wow. A quick recap of what happened. It depends who you believe. But the cops wearing a uniform sort of kind of makes it difficult for them to do undercover work in a vice squad if they're wearing their uniforms. Now, whether it's right or wrong isn't the question here, Dread Pirate Roysley. It's whether it was legally justified or not. Whether you think it's a bad law or a bad policy or a bad thing, that doesn't mean it's not legal. We have to follow the law. We have to make the decisions based on the law, so that if it does happen to somebody else, if it happens to you one day, you have the same benefits that everyone else has had. And I'm just thinking, personally, it seems like it was a bit extreme to me, but the evidence that I've seen, the evidence that was presented to me, indicates that that was a lawful shooting. But the evidence points to murder. Well, the evidence points to him shooting her, and then he seems to think there's evidence pointing to the fact that shooting was justified. We'll get the jury we'll talk about the jury instructions too when the jury instructions are handed down. We'll go through the jury instructions together during the first break after we get the jury instructions, and we'll break it down and we'll talk about each of the steps mentioned in the jury instructions, and we can kind of get your thoughts on the facts as they apply to the specific jury instructions that are given. let's see. All right. Well, this sort of looks kind of like where we are. I've given my opinions on it. You guys have given your opinions on it. Let's hear the closing arguments on Monday and analyze the jury instructions. And then we can all wait to find out what happens. Jury nullification. Well, it's not even really a jury nullification. They may interpret the actions differently. They don't even, if they say based on the evidence we saw, it's our determination. I'm just saying on my application of the law, it looks like he was justified in doing what he did. It was self-defense. That's how I see the evidence. The jury can see it some other way. Jury nullification is where you say, this is the law. We think this law is wrong, so we're going to ignore the law. We're going to ignore the instructions, and we're going to just render our own verdict. I don't think we need to go anywhere near jury nullification on this. They just have to come back and say, we interpreted this differently. We don't think it was reasonable what he did, so therefore he's guilty. This is a case that regardless of how it turns out, and I mean, it's not a big enough, high enough profile case that this will probably happen, but this is a case where I'd really like to hear one of the jurors explain why the jury voted however they're going to vote. Mr. Enns, yeah, that's pretty close to what I think may have happened. But again, regardless of what I think may have happened, I just got to go off the evidence as I've seen it, and you all get to go off the evidence as you've seen it. Why would they have to prove anything about the last shot? Well, how far apart were the last 3 shots? We don't know. Did the first two times she was shot? Let's assume that the last 3 shots were the one that hit her. They were the ones that hit her. The first one, that could have been the one that went through the shin and into the leg. That may not have neutralized her. She may have still been moving around. She may have still been trying to be what he perceived to be as aggressive against it. See, this is all what the officer's view of this. Was he reasonable in having this view that he had that she was still trying to attack, that she was still, resisting, and making it dangerous for him? Was this reasonable for him as he thinks it? So maybe the first one just kind of went in the thigh, went in and didn't hurt. The second one went somewhere in the stomach. Maybe she was still moving around. Maybe she was still doing something. And maybe the third one was the one that finally neutralized the threat. What kind of a knife was it? It was a switchblade. It was a press button blade with, I think they said it had a 3.5-inch blade on it that she had kept in her purse, apparently. Well, as I said, we'll keep this a short stream tonight. It's 11:30 here. I want to get a good night's sleep because I barely got any last night, and I still have a bunch of things to do. We have Maritime Monday coming up tomorrow. Because of the timing of this trial, we'll just do a short. There won't be any particular Maritime Monday topic this week. There won't be one particular case. We'll just look at we'll go back to the roots of how Maritime Monday started. We'll just look at some clips on the internet of some shipping stuff and talk a little bit about things, because we'll only have an hour before. We have to start an hour early anyway, so it'll be an hour early. We'll be starting Maritime Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern time, and this trial will start at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So we'll just do a sort of a shortened version of Maritime Monday because of this trial here. Then we'll do the trial, and however long it takes for them to reach a verdict, 1 or 2 days, we'll just sit, chill, and hang out as long as possible. And I've got to figure out some way, because I just can't stay up all night wondering if the jury is going to be coming back with a verdict. So I've got to find some way of somehow waking up and every hour or so to check on whether there's been a verdict. Well, I'll have to think about that tomorrow, how I'm going to handle the jury verdict, how we're going to handle that. If you know good recipes, you can do marinade Monday. Marinade. So all right, that'll be tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the 8 a.m. Eastern time start for just a chill maritime Monday. I said I've got some really cool stuff on the horizon for Maritime Monday, at least for the next month and a half. Thursday will be OJ Simpson Day as usual. Tuesday, Wednesday, we might be doing this. This trial, we'll just have to see. If not, we'll go on to bigger and better things. Friday's coming up. Friday, we'll be doing something else probably. And oh, wait, what? Why are we are shouting Aussie, Aussie, Aussie? Is that it? Has he arrived, or are you just saying that as a way to to alert me? Let's see who there is here to forward to. See if we can forward our stream to somebody. Does anybody see anybody going live on Sunday morning, or is everybody sleeping in like a normal person should? Let's see. Content. No, it wasn't a double-bladed switchblade. It was a foldable pocket knife with a 3.5-inch blade where you hit the button and it popped out. It wasn't like a double-edged stiletto that comes up out of the handle, the hilt. It was a folded knife. You press a button and it flips open. The second cut was also on his hand. I think they said it was on the back of his hand. Right. I'm trying to find out what's going on here. Live. Who is live? I think what we can do while we wait for the jury verdict, at least for a while. Yeah, they said it does look like one of those you can thumb open, but they testified that it was a button that you would push and it was open. Second here. I would beg to differ, Eric. I'm saying that's not a switchblade then. Pretty much every, well, I'm not saying every switchblade, but most switchblades will either have a single edge or a single edge and then the top half of the dull edge being the sharp edge. But yeah, you can have them both ways, but it doesn't. Let me see if I don't have a picture of it here. Don't have to. I would have to go back and look here. Now that's the one that has the flip lever on it. That's a fake one. Let me see. This isn't exactly what it looked like, but it's fairly close. But again, this is just the kind that you press the release button and then you flip it open. They testified that it was you push the button and it flipped open by itself because they differentiated it between the kind that you just flick open with your wrist. So let's see here. This is not a switchblade, but it looked similar to that. Let's see if we can find something that looked more similar to it. It was black, but yeah, again, it was more of this style, and that's one of the, you press the release button and flip it open with your wrist. But that was essentially the size and shape of it. Just for reference. Well, remind me, and we can bring it up on Monday. We'll look at some of the evidence on Monday. Either way, he grabbed the knife twice. Well, next time I'm going to grab a knife, I'm not going to grab the knife with the back of my hand. That would be dumb. All right. that's it. Let's wrap it up, guys. As I said, Monday we'll do this. If it goes to the jury, or even if it doesn't on the first time they have a break after reading the jury instructions, we'll break down the jury instructions. We'll talk them one-on-one. We'll take them one at a time and see how we think the evidence lines up with the instructions and how the instructions would affect an outcome. And that's where we'll go. We'll see you, first of all, for an early Maritime Monday, a little 1-hour hangout at 8 a.m. Eastern. This trial will begin at 9 a.m. Eastern, and we'll probably do some Judge Manning during the breaks and during the wait. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for this very special Sunday catch-up stream. You guys rock. Thank you for popping on in. We've currently still got 235 of you here. That's not too bad for a Sunday morning stream. Love you guys all. Mods, thank you so much for being mods. Welcome to our 2 newest mods. We have our 2 newest mods here, which To Be Flair and Nicholas Starov are our 2 new mods. So good job. We need to start building up our mod supply. So just get random feelings. Mod people. And thank you so much, chat, for being here. You guys rock. Thank you so much for the super chats as always. You dog. Oh, wait. I miss Strawberry departing. Wonder where she went. Take care, guys. Appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, if you have subscribed, please make sure that you are still subscribed. And just in case you care, check the count. We are currently at 36,002. And I just did want to say that Marv White gave a super thanks to the Last of Us video. So thank you, Marv, if you're listening to this now or catching it on replay. Thank you so much for the super thanks you left on the Last of Us video. See, I know it's I know it's a switchblade. I was being argued with. So there we go. Take care. See y'all tomorrow. Lorax out, I think. Yes. Bye.